Good day, everybody. We had some more nice plump blueberries this year, and last year I had so many blueberries I didn't know what to do with them, so I made blueberry pies. I ate about as many as I wanted to eat, and then I just made pies with the rest of it. So this year, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make some fresh blueberry wine. So I think it'll be fun, and you can join along with me for the ride. Okay, so we got our blueberries nice and clean. We got about 5 pounds of blueberries, and we're gonna add water. And I use spring water. A lot of people make their wine with tap water, which is fine, but I just like to use natural spring water. Because I just feel like it's gonna give it a little bit better flavor. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna start transferring these over into this bowl here, and we're gonna crush them up. I usually use a potato masher, but I can't find my potato masher. So what I'm gonna do is just use this big spoon, and I'm gonna transfer them over here, and we're just gonna slightly push down on them and crush them. Some people use a blender or pureer, and I don't like doing that. I like to mash my fruit up naturally. I don't like to break the skin up too much, because sometimes the skin can make your wine bitter if you tear it up too much. So I just like to lightly smush it and crush it. And also, if you crush it up too fine, it can make it harder to clear the wine. So we're just gonna lightly smush them, and I'll show you the next step. So I'm gonna keep crushing these up with this spoon, and I'll be right back with you. All right, we got all of our blueberries crushed up, so we're gonna get ready to add our water. Okay, the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna crush up some camdium tablets. Uh, what this does, it kills the natural yeast that's in the wine, and also kills any bacteria that may be in your pulp. So we're gonna crush 2 tablets. Use 1 tablet per gallon. Since we got about 2 gallons, we're just gonna do 2 tablets. So we're gonna crush them up and stir them up in our mixture. Okay, y'all. What we're gonna do, we're gonna go ahead and dissolve our sugar. So put about maybe a quart of spring water in here, and we're gonna dissolve this sugar in the water, spring water. Now I'm gonna put 5 pounds, so this is a 10-pound bag of sugar that I have. So I'm gonna put approximately half of this in there, and then we're gonna mix it in our mix. And we're gonna take a specific gravity reading, and if we need to add more, we'll add a little more. Okay, we're gonna slowly dissolve the sugar. I don't like my water to get boiling hot, because I don't want to cook my blueberries in any kind of way. When I make wine, I like for the fruit to stay fairly fresh. So I try not to I just get it warm enough to melt that sugar. And again, I can't stress how, the cleanliness of when you're making wine. I sterilize everything. Sterilize this pot, the spoon, my bucket, my fermenter, my straining bag. I make a solution. I use a Be Bright cleanser. It came with my wine kit, but usually a wine kit gonna come with the cleanser. If not, you can use Star San. That's a very popular cleanser to use as well. But you want to definitely sanitize everything. All right, so we got our sugar water dissolved. We're gonna go ahead and add it to our pulp and juice. Okay, the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and take a specific gravity reading. The reason I'm gonna go ahead and do that now, if it's not at the level that I want it, then I can add more sugar, and it'd be better to do it now while my mix is still a little warm and that sugar will dissolve in there. Most people just add more sugar water, but I don't want to at this point put any more water in my wine. I'm happy with the level of water I have in there. I don't want to weaken the flavor of my wine anymore. So that's why it's important to do it now while it's still kind of warm. But we'll get started on that. Okay, y'all. So on our specific gravity reading, you can't see the top of it, but it's 1.0 is water. So as you can see, I hope you can see, we're at and the more sugar we have in here, the higher that hydrometer is going to come up, because it's measuring the level of sugar or the weight that's added to that liquid. So right now we're at a 1.075, and this hydrometer has a wine. It's labeled for wine, and beer, and other dessert beverages. But so that green level lets us know we're in the wine category that we want our wine to be in. So, and it also tells us if we burn off all this sugar and when we get back down to 0.0, which is equivalent to water, then we should be at about 10% alcohol. I don't know if you can see it, but right there it has a little 10%. So I like my wine to be 15% alcohol. The more alcohol content, the less it takes away from the flavor of the wine. That's why you don't want to make it too high. So to me, 15% is a good medium for me, because I do like it to have a punch. That's why I like to use a little bit more fruit than water in my wine. That way I can get a higher sugar content, but I can keep the flavor of the fruit that made the wine. So we're gonna add basically a little more sugar to try to get it up to about. We'll need to get it up here. You see, 15% is right here, so we'll need to get it at 0.101. So we'll need to get it right in there. So we're going to add a little more sugar to it so we can try to accomplish that. Okay, y'all, we back and we are up in the blue area. Like I said, with the more sugar you add, the higher it's going to float. So we added some more sugar, and now we're up where we want to be in that little blue category of dessert wine. So we're at a 1.110. And if we burn off all of our sugar and we get back down to 1, which is water, then we'll be at the 15% alcohol by volume. Some people may ask, well, why not make it even stronger, or make it even 20% alcohol by volume? Well, one, it's going to take away from the flavor of your wine. It's going to overpower your wine, and wine is not necessarily how much alcohol is in it. It's more the flavor with the alcohol. So you don't want to go too high if you want to have a good quality wine. And secondly, it's really hard in natural fermentation to get a alcohol by volume that high, because even though you use a yeast nutrient and you may use a high quality grade of yeast, after so long the alcohol is going to kill that yeast, and you really never 15 maybe 18% is about as much as you're going to be able to get anyway out of a dessert wine. Okay, y'all, so the next thing we're going to do, we're going to add some additional ingredients to our mixture. I end up with about 3 gallons of mixture, so I did add in one more crushed cadmium tablet, and I let that sit for about 6 or 7 hours, and now I'm going to add these ingredients. Now you can add the cadmium tablets into your mixture with these ingredients at the same time, and I normally actually do that, but for some reason I did it a little different this time and let that get a head start. So we're going to add in a yeast nutrient. Now we're going to add in about 3 teaspoons of this, since we got about 3 gallons. Now what this does, it helps create a healthy environment for that yeast to thrive in, so we can get the most out of our yeast. The next thing we're gonna do is put in an acid blend. Now the acid blend, we're gonna put in about 3 teaspoons of that as well. That helps balance out the acidity in the fruit juice. So we wind up with a high quality wine, and that's important when you're using an acidic fruit like blueberries. The next thing we're gonna do is put in a peptic enzyme. We're gonna put in about a teaspoon and a half of that. The peptic enzyme, it helps break down the natural pectin that's in the fruit so it doesn't get too thick. You wind up with a liquidy mixture that's not, hopefully makes it easier to clear in the end. So we're gonna put in that. And the last thing we're gonna put in is the tannin. We're gonna put in about 1.5 teaspoons of this to add some. The tannin adds body to the wine. You can't use other things in replace of this tannin that you can purchase. Like some people use oat chips, or some people boil a cup of tea, black tea, and pour in there, or they grind up raisins and let raisins ferment in there. Basically something to give it a little more body. So you don't, certain fruits, once they ferment, they don't have a whole lot of body. That's why grapes are kind of like the staple for wine making. But when you start making wine out of other type fruits, then it's important to add tannins to get, so you wind up with some body. Now once I mix all these in and stir them in, I'm gonna let it sit overnight. Then we'll put our yeast in the morning. Okay, y'all, so it's the next day. We're gonna get ready to prepare to add our yeast. The first thing we're gonna do is pull up on our straining bag, and we're gonna separate our pulp from our juice. And we're gonna let the juice ferment, but we're gonna leave the pulp in there because we want it, as it fermenting, we want it to start pulling the flavor and the color from those berries. So we're gonna make it hopefully easier to clear at the end. So you don't have to do this, but that's how I like to, put my pulp in a brewing bag. So we're gonna go ahead and get that started. It'll take a little while to drain all this pulp out of here. We're gonna try to squeeze as much of that juice out of there as we can. Okay. Now that we got most of our juice extracted, we're gonna tie the bag up as tight as we can. And again, keep everything as sanitized as possible. I sanitize my hands. This bag has been sanitized. So it's important to keep that, not to forget that step. All right, so that's our brewing bag. Okay, so we got our, bag in there, as you'll see, with the pulp in it. And then what we're gonna do now is add our yeast. So I am going to use this right here is a Red Star. It's made by Red Star. It's a Premier Classic. This, you can use any yeast that you like. This right here is what I have, and it's been working very fine. It seems like be a very strong acting yeast, and it lasts a long time. So I'm just gonna keep using it. But any yeast you want to use should be fine. A lot of people will also, start their yeast, actively start in a cup of water. But, I just noticed that it's just as good to just sprinkle it on in there. It works just as fine. So I don't worry about doing that step. I just lightly sprinkle it around. And that should be fine. Just put a whole packet of yeast in there. We're gonna let that sit for about 15 or 20 minutes. It ought to become active, and it ought to start within about a couple of hours. It ought to really start working. All right, y'all, this is few hours later, well, next morning, and you can see that yeast is starting to work because it's pushing off that carbon dioxide, and that's why it's that little bubbler is bubbling like that. So we'll let it sit a few more hours, and then we'll take a look at it. Okay, y'all, as you can see, it is fermenting. That's why I got all the bubbles at the top. So what we're gonna do is at least twice a day, we're gonna come in and stir it. We're gonna stir that bag, just kind of dip it down, and then we're gonna stir it around. We want to make sure that yeast is moved around, and any sugars that are lingering are moved around so that yeast can get to it. And then just keep a healthy environment for if you keep it stirred around every now and then. Just gonna give it a quick stir twice a day. That's gonna be it. It's got a nice color to it already. Okay, so this process should take about 8 to 10 days. So when that bubbler start slowing down, then what I'll do is I'll come back and we'll add it to our secondary fermenter. Okay, y'all, so it's been actually about 12 days since it's been fermenting. So actually still getting a lot of action right before I went out of town on vacation, and I came back 4 days later and it's still getting a little bit of action on the bubbler, as you can see. So what we're gonna do though is we're gonna go ahead and remove the pulp, because I don't want it to sit in there any longer. It's probably sitting there a little longer than I anticipated it would. So we're gonna go ahead and remove the pulp, and then we're gonna put it in our secondary fermentator, and I'll show you that process here. All right, so what we're gonna do is smelling pretty powerful. So what we're gonna do is squeeze as much out of the brewing bag as we can. Let it drain a little bit. And again, I've sanitized my hands, and I'm gonna show you the secondary fermentator I'm going to transfer everything into. I've sanitized all of that as well. Okay, as you can see, I have my primary fermentator up here, and I'm going to siphon it down to my secondary fermentator. So that process shouldn't take us but a few minutes. Okay, I want to quickly show you the bottom of the bucket. So I siphoned off everything. I left the sediment at the bottom. That is just fruit pulp residuals and dead yeast. So that's going to aid us in the clearing process at the end. And let me show you my secondary fermentator. Okay, y'all, I got everything in my secondary fermentator, and this is going to be my first time using this type of fermentator. It's called a fast fermenter or a conial fermenter, and it's supposed to greatly increase the amount of time it takes to clear your wine. So we'll see. We'll learn the process together. Normally, what I'll do, and the traditional way to do it, is you just transfer your wine from one container to another. So generally what I do is I would transfer my wine to a glass carboy, and I got some 6 gallon carboys. This one right here is 3 gallons. That's why I purposely made 3 gallons of wine this time. I also want to learn to do smaller batches. So I just thought that was perfect. So that's why I purposely made 3 gallons for this particular fermenter. The reason it's supposed to be faster is because the sediment will collect at the bottom of that little ball at the bottom. And instead of raking it back and forth, you'll just, maybe every 2 or 3 weeks, you'll just get the sediment, close that valve, and then unscrew that little glass ball, and then discard the sediment, and then just start the process over. So we'll see how that works. It's supposed to also cut down on contamination, because sometimes you risk getting contamination when you go to raking your wine back and forth. So we'll see. I'm kind of excited to learn this process. So we'll be back in about 2 or 3 weeks to see how it's looking. And thanks for watching. All right, y'all, we're back. It is the end of September, so the wine has been completed fermentation. but it has been, we've been getting the sediment off the bottom. So I let it sit the first part of July, and we did one removal of the sediment. We just by removing this glass jar here, and it was full of sediment, and I did that probably at the late part of July. So it sat for about 3 weeks to a month, and then that was the only removal of the sediment I did. And then now it's been sitting since that time till September. So it's been sitting about a good 2 months. And it has a little bit of sediment I can see at the jar. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove that and show you that process. And then we'll take a specific gravity reading and determine if we need to add any more sugar. And also we'll determine our alcohol by volume. So what we're gonna do on this removal of the sediment, there is a little stopper here, so we're gonna cut that off. So we're gonna cut off the flow, that wine going to that jar, and then we're gonna remove the jar. So I'm gonna be right back with you. All right, y'all. We are back, and I took the sediment off. I poured some of the wine that was in this little jar. I poured it in my cylinder here to take a specific gravity reading. But as you can see, we got a little bit of sediment that was left in there, not much. So we're ready to get ready to bottle it. But on our specific gravity reading, we're reading at a 1.02. And if you remember, when we started out, we were at the little over 15% alcohol by volume, which was 15% is 1.20. So we were a little bit over that. Really, we're about at 1.21, 1.22. But basically, we're at about 15% alcohol by volume. So the good thing about this hydrometer, it has the alcohol by volume on it. So at 1.02, that's 5% alcohol by volume. So a quick, easy way to calculate that is that we'll just subtract that from our 15% we started off with. So we didn't get quite down to 1, which I was kind of shocked we didn't, because it fermented for about 10 or 12 days. So we had a strong fermentation. So if we would have got down to the 1, which is water, then we would have achieved our 15% alcohol by volume. But we're at a little over 10%, so I think that's fine, for blueberry wine. So we're gonna get ready to bottle it. But before we bottle it, we're gonna do 2 things. We're going to put in 3 cadmium tablets, which that will, kill any bacteria or yeast that got in it through the fermentation process and while it's been sitting. So that's metabisulfate. So we're gonna add that in there, and then we're gonna add some potassium sorbate. Now that potassium sorbate will eliminate any future fermentation because it still has a little bit of sugar in it. Matter of fact, generally at this point, if I'd have got all the way back down to 0, we would have had a dry wine, and I would have back sweetened it. Now a lot of people, when they back sweeten it, they'll make a simple syrup. They'll start out maybe with maybe 2 cups of water, and then they'll just add sugar into that, and they'll make like a real thick syrup, and then mix it in their wine. But again, like I stated, whenever I'm making fruit wine, I don't like to add any extra water to it. So what I do is I just add straight sugar in there, and it does take a little while to stir it up and get it all dissolved, but to me it's worth it. And I just let the sugar dissolve along with the cadmium tablets and the potassium sorbate. I just mix it all in together. But we're gonna skip the actually back sweeten step, because with the little bit of sweetness that's left in the wine, I'm actually happy with the way it tastes. I didn't want to make this wine too sweet, so we're gonna leave it just like it is. But we're gonna get ready for the next step. Okay, y'all. So I put in my 3 cadmium tablets, my metabisulfate, and then I put in my potassium sorbate. Now again, these ingredients you can get with most any wine kit. You may have to buy the potassium sorbate separately, but I put in 3 of those, and I put in a tablespoon of potassium sorbate. So and again, I have about 3 gallons of wine. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use this spinner to help dissolve everything, and also it'll give me an opportunity to degas my wine before I bottle it. As you can see, it's releasing all that carbon monoxide. Did that process for about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, off and on. So getting that CO2 out of it, we're just gonna let it age a lot better before you bottle it. Getting the most of that carbon dioxide out of there is gonna improve the quality of the wine as it ages. So we're ready to do that. Now this fermenter has a bottling mechanism that you can hook to the bottom of it, that you just turn the valve back on, and then run the wine into the bottle. But what I'm gonna do is do it the old-fashioned way. I'm gonna have it 10 bottles, so I'm just gonna scoop the wine out of there, and I'm gonna filter it. It just gives me one more opportunity to filter the wine before I bottle it, to get any little impurities out of it. Everything has been sanitized. I would add, I sanitize all my bottles, all my equipment again, and that is critical to do that. When I degassed my wine, the drill, that was actually a brand new drill, but I wiped it down so I didn't have any impurities to come out of it into the wine. And then the wine that you saw me using was also, sanitized as well. So again, cleanliness is the key. Like I said, there are faster ways of bottling than this. But just do it the old-fashioned way. That's about as much wine as I want to put in there. About 3 inches from the top. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna finish filling all these bottles. All right, y'all. So I got everything bottled up. It's very easy. I use this particular corker. It's just a hand corker, and I just load the cork in the thing there, and then I just press down on the bottle, and it pushes the cork down in there. It's very simple. There's a lot of directions on how to use these little hand corkers. You can get more sophisticated, but this right here does the trick for me. I'm just a novice. But the next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna put on our labels, and I'll quickly show you how I do that. When I get ready to do my seals, I just put those seals loosely on top of the wine bottle. Then I just gotta boil in some hot water, and I just hold it with one finger, and then I'll do that and create a seal. Then I can put the whole bottle down in there. And perfect seal.